And joining us now is Mr. Maciej Kozłowski, a former Polish ambassador to Israel. Sir, pleasure to have you with us. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Good morning.
All right, so before we start with anything else, we'll start with the talk of the town, which is, of course, recent comments, again, very strong comments made by Israeli ambassador to Poland, Mr. Livne. The Polish opposition calling for a response from the government. We finally have a response, actually. Andrzej Szejna, the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, had this to say. Let's take a look.
First of all, we supported the resolution of United Nations organization supporting the full membership of Palestine in organization, and it's for us a clear situation because we supported also the sovereignty of the Palestinian state in 1988, so it's a consequence of this decision of the Polish state. So the words of my ambassador are, let's say gently, irresponsible. It's not necessary. He was called to the ministry once. It was in very serious situation. It was death of the Polish humanitarian worker of the international organization. I don't want to call him every week. It's his, let's say, duty to represent his country properly, but if he's not doing it professionally, it's the problem of Israel.
All right, sir. Serious situation here. I wonder, you as a diplomat, I wonder if you could tell us, do you think that Mr. Livne is acting as a loose cannon, or is he really representing Israel? Is this the way Israel wishes to communicate with Poland?
Well, the first comment is obvious. Diplomacy needs discretion. This is obvious for any professional diplomat. Speaking publicly makes only harm to relations, whatever it is. And in that sense, Ambassador Livne made a very serious professional mistake twice, because it's not his first, I would say, not appropriate tweet. But let me quote I think, the most prominent Israeli columnist who made a comment on Memorial Day. This is a Memorial Day in Israel, a very important day in Israel when the fallen soldiers are remembered. Day before the Independence Day. So there are two festive days, the most sad in Israel in its whole history. And let me quote Amos Harel from Haaretz. You can escape for a moment from reality in Israel, but you can't really hide. We are now in the heart of a real shit storm, deep inside the camp of pariahs. And Israel is in the same league as Russia, which, unlike us, was not brutally attacked, but launched an attack on Ukraine without provocation against it. This is a double standard of its words. In the West, and certainly in the Arab countries, many began to minimize, excuse, and even deny the October 7 massacre from the moment it happened. But it also takes a special kind of diplomatic talent to waste extensive political credit in which a quick and deadly way. The Israeli government did this with great success. That's a comment of an Israeli commentator. So you see that even in Israel, they understand the diplomacy of Israel in this very hard times for the country is, speaking very mildly, not professional.
Right, and having that in mind, you mentioned that also an intricate balance and diplomacy is needed, which clearly we see that Mr. Livne is lacking of in the moment, perhaps. Perhaps the situation, some claim that it might change, and in fact now some Polish opposition, and there are some voices in the community that perhaps now the ambassador should be changed if these kind of comments coming from ambassador representative of Israel to Poland continue. But what is your now take on this? What kind of implications do you think now could the ambassador's statements have on Polish-Israeli relations as of now?
Well, of course, it's not helping Israeli-Polish relations, but I am afraid that it is much serious. It's not a loose cannon. It's unfortunately the way how the whole Israeli government acts. If you look what Prime Minister Netanyahu is doing in relation to the United States, that is a very small thing in Poland. And Israel is facing much more serious events in the international arena than this vote in UN, which was practically speaking insignificant. It didn't change anything. And, you know, having the distribution of votes, 143 against 9, with 20 abstentions, shows how isolated Israel is in the world arena.
That's right. And do you think this is reactionary coming from the? Is this a do they feel like the walls are caving in on them?
Exactly. Yeah. They are in Israel is a deep political crisis inside. The government is opposed by now majority of Israelis. There are mass demonstrations against the government. And the government behaves like in a besieged fortress. And this reaction is part of this mentality of besieged fortress.
And having that in mind, because we are facing a situation where, for instance, Poland has been, also historically speaking, has been a staunch supporter of Israel. And to be honest, when the rest of Europe clearly was supporting Palestine, Poland was one of few countries that supported firmly Israel. And it seems that, for instance, now the UN vote is namely being in connection with other European countries. So it doesn't surprise us at all. But having that in mind, do you think that now, is it wise for Israel to get rid of its friends through this kind of now perhaps diplomatic mistakes? And do you feel like perhaps now Israel is becoming more isolated, well, on its own accord?
Well, I think it's a very deep mistake because you are right. Poland was always among those European countries which were more supportive to Israel than the others. And of course, the role of ambassador in Poland would be to speak quietly to keep Poland in this, I would say, pro-Israeli camp. Not speaking publicly against Israel, against Poland, and creating a diplomatic storm, which we have just seen. So I think that it is, I would say, diplomacy in its worst. Because as I mentioned, Israel is facing much more serious diplomatic crises. We have two courts in Hague deliberating on maybe some sanctions against Israel, or maybe a sanction against individual Israeli, like the sanction against Putin. Probably this issue will be brought to the UN, to the Foreign Assembly for discussion. So there are still a lot of diplomatic events in which the support of Poland would be very important. And creating a crisis over a very insignificant event was, let us say, stupid.
That's right. And I mean, there was a statement recently that said, if Israel has to go it alone, it will. Is this the sort of attitude that we have here? We don't care about any friends. We're going alone.
Well, that's what Netanyahu claims, but unfortunately for Israel, it cannot go along. The first withdrawal of the military aid from United States was just symbolic, but it might be not symbolic. And Israel, without American help, cannot defend itself.
Which we clearly see in recent months. Well, thank you so much, sir, for joining us and for your insights, shedding this to light.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure to have you, sir. Thanks so much.